If the ultimate objective of one's political crusade is to levy heavier taxes upon the wealthy, a most excellent place to commence such an audit would be with the designer of one's own couture gown. It was with this specific, incendiary remark that the room seemed to detonate, shifting instantly from a political forum to a gladiatorial arena. That explosive moment was merely the catalyst, the spark that ignited the powder keg, marking the exact commencement of how Donald Trump systematically dismantled the political persona of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over the course of 60 minutes of live, unscripted television. He did not achieve this destruction through the conventional weapons of Washington. There were no dry policy papers filled with academic jargon, nor were there the carefully tested talking points of high-priced political consultants. Instead, he arrived armed with receipts, photographic evidence, and a brand of brutal, unvarnished honesty that possesses the unique ability to make cable news producers simultaneously panic over the chaos and celebrate the inevitable ratings gold. The stage for this confrontation was a CNN special town hall event held in Miami, Florida, on a humid Tuesday night, where 200 individuals had packed themselves tightly into a television studio that was heavy with the scent of hairspray and raw ambition. The audience itself was a visual representation of a polarized nation, split starkly down the middle. On the right side sat the rows of red MAGA hats, representing the staunch loyalists of the former president, while the left was dotted with the green pins, symbolizing the Green New Deal, representing the progressive wing, and positioned precariously in the center of this brewing storm was Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper appeared silver-haired and seemed to be already deeply regretting every single life decision that had conspired to lead him to this specific, volatile moment in time, looking like a man who knew he was about to lose control of his own show. Trump made his entrance first, clad in his signature navy suit, paired with a red tie and an American flag pin, executing the walk, the wave, and the finger point with the practiced ease of a 78-year-old showman who was still capable of working a room like a headliner on the Las Vegas Strip. He settled himself into his chair with the supreme confidence of a man who had been navigating the public eye and controlling news cycles since long before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was even born. Then she walked out, presenting a carefully curated image. A cream blazer featuring a designer cut, statement earrings that caught and reflected the studio lights, and a purple dress underneath that someone would later identify as a $400 piece from the brand Reformation. She wore her trademark bold lip color and flashed that million-watt smile she had perfected for the digital age, a smile designed for her 13 million Instagram followers. As a member of the squad and the heralded future of the Democratic Party, she walked onto the stage thinking she was fully prepared for the debate, believing she represented the new guard ready to take down the old. Anderson Cooper cleared his throat, attempting to establish control as he welcomed the audience to CNN's town hall on confronting America's future. But before he could finish his introduction, Trump interjected, asking if he could say something, demonstrating his characteristic refusal to wait for permission. Trump stated that he wanted to thank CNN for hosting them, acknowledging that while they had their differences in the past regarding fake news and witch hunts, and that he knew the drill, he believed that on this particular night, the American people were going to learn something very important. He then turned his attention to AOC, smiling the kind of smile a shark might offer just moments before it bites, and asked if he could call her Alexandria. He commented that Alexandria was a beautiful name, and remarked that she looked very nice that evening, describing her appearance as very professional and very put together, before asking with feigned innocence if the outfit was new. Noting that it certainly looked new, AOC's smile tightened visibly at the personal comment, and she thanked Mr. President. Attempting to pivot immediately to her talking points, by stating that they were going to be talking a lot about money that night, specifically about who has it, who spends it, and who pretends not to have it, while living as if they do. Trump leaned back in his chair, absorbing her opening salvo, and replied that he wanted to start by acknowledging that she looked expensive. At this remark, the left side of the audience bristled with defensiveness, while the right side leaned forward in anticipation, and Anderson Cooper looked like a man watching a car crash unfold in slow motion, saying weakly, "Let's begin," which signaled the start of the massacre. The first question came from a middle-aged woman wearing a Tax the Rich t-shirt, a choice that showed CNN had cast the audience well, who asked Representative Ocasio-Cortez how she responded to critics who claimed she did not live the values she preached. AOC uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, entering her wheelhouse. This was a question she had answered 1,000 times on Twitter, MSNBC, and The View, and she had her talking points completely memorized. She thanked the woman for the question and began her standard response, that this critique comes from people who fundamentally misunderstand what they are fighting for, clarifying that she is not saying everyone should be poor, but rather that everyone should have access. Anderson attempted to intervene, but Trump raised his hand like a kid in class who already knows the answer, declaring that this was going to be fun, tremendous fun. Anderson sighed, reminding the former president that it was not his turn, to which Trump replied that he knew, but since she had said something about living her values, he felt compelled to respond because he had receipts. So many receipts, and he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Suddenly, the massive monitors flanking the stage lit up with images from the 2021 Met Gala, displaying AOC in a white flowing gown with the words "Tax the Rich" emblazoned across the back in blood-red letters. She looked radiant and confident, surrounded by New York's elite. The left side of the audience erupted in applause, remembering this moment fondly as AOC taking her message to the establishment revolutionary fashion meant to eat the rich while looking fabulous. Trump waited for the applause to die down, still smiling, and complimented the dress as beautiful, very elegant, and very haute couture, adding that the term is French for expensive. He asked who designed it, and AOC lifted her chin, answering that it was Aurora James, a black woman designer whom she was supporting. Trump nodded, noting that she was indeed supporting expensive fashion because that specific dress cost about $50,000, give or take. He paused to let the number land, then repeated it slowly, $50,000 for a dress that says, "Tax the Rich." The irony, Trump noted while kissing his fingers like a chef, was magnificent. The screen changed to reveal more photos. AOC posing with Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue with a net worth around $50 million. AOC laughing with Katy Perry, whose net worth is $330 million. And AOC clinking champagne glasses with people whose combined wealth could fund a small country. Trump stood up and started gesturing at the screen like a prosecutor presenting evidence, asking to clarify that she went to a party, not a fundraiser for the homeless, not a community center in the Bronx, not a soup kitchen, but a party where tickets cost a fortune. He asked Anderson how much the tickets were, and Anderson, consulting his notes and already knowing where this was going, replied that they were $35,000. Trump repeated the figure $35,000, letting it echo, then acknowledged that her ticket was comped, which was very generous of them, but insisted they talk about what the event actually is: rich people wearing expensive clothes to look at expensive art, while eating expensive food and drinking expensive champagne. He zoomed in on another photo showing AOC with a glass in her hand, identifying the liquid as Dom Perignon, stating that he knew his champagnes and that bottle runs about $200 to $300, Trump walked closer to the monitors, pointing out her companions Anna Wintour, Katy Perry, and Rihanna, noting that Rihanna was pushing $1 billion now and was a great businesswoman, and turned back to AOC, pointing out that there she was in the middle of it all. She was wearing a $50,000 tax-the-rich dress, drinking their champagne and smiling for their cameras, while the average American, the people she claimed to represent, were likely working 2 jobs that night, coming home exhausted, trying to figure out how to pay rent, afford groceries, or save anything for their kids' future. Trump's voice rose as he accused her of being at a museum gala with billionaires, wearing a dress that costs more than they make in a year, and drinking champagne that costs more than their weekly grocery bill. He paused, letting the camera linger on AOC's face, which was flushed now. Whether from anger or embarrassment was hard to tell. The only thing missing, Trump shook his head and noted, was a crown. He remarked that she could have been Marie Antoinette, saying, "Let them eat socialism," which was perfect, just perfect. The right side of the audience erupted in laughter and applause, and even some people on the left were smiling uncomfortably, as the cognitive dissonance was too strong to ignore. AOC tried to respond, claiming he was deliberately missing the point, and that the dress was a statement, to which Trump clapped his hands and agreed, "Yes, it was a statement that you can be a socialist and still spend more on one outfit than most Americans spend on clothes in their entire lives." He sat back down, grinning, and told the folks at home to stay tuned because CNN's ratings were going through the roof, and they were just getting started. The Met Gala dress was nothing compared to what he had to say about her Tesla. Anderson Cooper looked at his notes and the ceiling, probably praying for a commercial break. But there was no such luck. Trump was in his element, and this wasn't a debate or a discussion, but a performance he had been practicing his whole life. He pulled out a thick manila folder stuffed with papers, patted it like a loyal dog, and announced he had been doing research with his people, the best, smartest people who had been digging and found so many things. AOC's lawyer in the front row was furiously texting, realizing this was spiraling out of control and wondering where the balance was. Trump saw the lawyer and smiled at him, assuring the counselor that everything he was about to say was public record. FEC filings, Instagram posts, news articles, all verifiable. He looked at the camera and encouraged everyone to Google it themselves and not take his word for it. He opened the folder, letting more papers spill out, and stated that while everyone knows he is a billionaire who lives in a penthouse, flies in a private jet, eats at the best restaurants, and wears expensive suits, pointing out his Brioni suit cost about $6,000, there was a difference between him and Alexandria. He declared that he does not pretend to be something he is not. He does not lecture people about wealth inequality while living like royalty. He is rich and honest about it, whereas she is rich and pretends she is not. Trump pulled out a piece of paper showing her congressional salary of $174,000 a year, noting that is way more than the average American makes and puts her in the top 10% of earners in the country. He looked at AOC and told her she talks like she is struggling and barely getting by, like she is one of the people, but she is not one of the people anymore. She is one of us, the elite, the establishment, the swamp. He stood up and started pacing, saying, "There is nothing wrong with making money, as America is about making money, but she shouldn't pretend to be poor while driving a $60,000 car." The audience stirred, and someone shouted, "Tell her!" while Anderson tried to intervene to give AOC a chance, but Trump insisted she would get her chance later, because he wasn't done. They hadn't talked about the Tesla, the apartment, the boyfriend, or the grandmother yet. He sat back down, ready for round two, though she wasn't, and without waiting for permission, he pulled up more photos on his phone to talk about her car. He confirmed she drives a Tesla, to which AOC nodded wearily, explaining she drives an electric vehicle because she cares about the environment. Trump acknowledged this as very noble, but pivoted to the price tag, asking which model she had. When it was established as the Model 3 Long Range, Trump pulled up a screenshot from the Tesla website showing the pricing $60,000 plus taxes and fees, totaling perhaps $65,000 or $70,000. He showed it to the camera, stating there is nothing wrong with a $60,000 car he has bought. Cars costing 10 times that, but he doesn't go around pretending to be a champion of the working class. He then pulled up a spreadsheet of congressional travel records, public information, noting that the trip from New York to D.C. is about 225 miles. He asked how she usually gets there, and when she hesitated, he stated flatly, "You fly." He cited 52 flights in the last 2 years for a distance of 225 miles, pointing out, there is a beautiful, comfortable Amtrak train that takes about 3 hours where one can work or sleep. He held up the spreadsheet, revealing she took the train only 18 times, less than a third of her trips, and started doing math on his fingers to calculate her carbon footprint. He estimated 52 flights at about 200 pounds of CO2 per flight, meant about 10,000 pounds of CO2 just from commuting. He compared this to the average American, who produces about 16 tons of CO2 per year total, pointing out she was producing almost a ton just from flying 200 miles. He pulled up a comparison chart, showing her total estimated CO2 was 5 metric tons per year, compared to the average American's 16, meaning she was producing almost 5 times more carbon than the people she lectures about climate change. The audience gasped, and even Democrats looked surprised. But Trump held up a hand, saying there was more because they hadn't talked about her apartment. He pulled up a photo of a modern, sleek glass and steel building in the Navy Yard, a very trendy and expensive area of D.C., and asked how much the rent was. AOC looked at her lawyer, who shook his head slightly, before she answered quietly that it was about $3,000 a month. Trump repeated the figure $3,000 a month, or $36,000 a year, just on rent, and then read from the building's website amenities list: 24-hour concierge, rooftop pool with skyline views, yoga studio, wellness center, and pet spa. He looked up and emphasized, a pet spa. The gallery erupted in laughter, and even Anderson Cooper was smiling. Trump said he loves dogs. They are loyal and better than most people. But his voice rose as he pointed out the absurdity that while her constituents are choosing between paying rent and buying medicine, her building has a facility to give massages to dogs. He laughed, genuinely delighted, saying, "You literally cannot make this stuff up." He pulled out more documents referring to a recent data breach where Uber and Lyft user data was leaked, revealing 149 rides in D.C. over 2 years for AOC. He showed a screenshot of 49 Uber and Lyft rides in a city that has a metro, buses, bike shares, and electric scooters. He zoomed in on a specific ride on June 15th, after a climate rally where she spoke passionately about reducing carbon emissions. 2 hours later, she was leaving that rally in an Uber to go 3 miles a distance she could walk in 40 minutes. He showed another image of her holding a Starbucks plastic cup with a plastic lid at a climate rally about reducing plastic waste, noting the overwhelming cognitive dissonance that made even her supporters cringe. Trump summarized that she drives a $60,000 car, flies when she could take the train, lives in a luxury building with a dog spa, and takes Ubers to climate rallies while holding plastic cups, asking how she sleeps at night before answering for her, probably on a very expensive mattress. The right side gave a standing ovation, while the left sat in stunned silence. When Anderson gave her a chance to respond, she claimed he was cherry-picking data. But Trump shot back that these were her choices. She chose the Tesla, the luxury building, and the Uber rides. And that pointing out how they contradict her beliefs is not cherry-picking, it's stating the obvious. He stood up and said he didn't blame her for living well, as America is about making money. But she shouldn't lecture him or anyone else about lifestyles while living like that. Trump then looked at the camera and warned that the next part about her grandmother was going to make people really mad, shifting the room's energy from showman to serious. An older Cuban-American man in the audience stood up with tears in his eyes, sharing that his family was from Puerto Rico and lost everything in Hurricane Maria, including a cousin who died without insulin, and reminded AOC she said she would fight for them. AOC's demeanor transformed. This was personal, her story and brand, and she thanked him, explaining that Puerto Rico is deeply personal because her abuela still lives there and her home's roof hasn't been properly fixed since the hurricane, causing water to come in every time it rains. She showed photos of the elderly woman's damaged home on the screen, saying this is why she fights, because her abuela shouldn't live like this, and the government failed them. The left side of the audience was emotional, seeing the AOC they loved, fighting for family. Trump watched and said nothing until she finished, then stood up slowly, agreeing that it was terrible her grandmother lived like that, which was why what she did next was so unforgivable. The room went silent as Trump pulled up screenshots of a GoFundMe page from June 2021. He explained that after she posted the photos, Matt Walsh, a conservative commentator who disagrees with her on everything, started a GoFundMe to raise money for her grandmother's roof. People donated, people who think socialism is stupid and vote Republican, raising $14,682 in 24 hours to help her abuela. Trump's voice hardened as he revealed what she did. She refused it. The room exploded with gasps and shouts, and Anderson Cooper banged his gavel for order. Trump continued, stating she shut down the GoFundMe and released a statement saying it wasn't about one grandmother but systemic change, refusing the help because it came from the wrong people. He broke down the math. Contractors in Puerto Rico said the roof would cost $15,000 to $25,000 maximum. The GoFundMe raised $14,000, enough to fix it 4 times over with money left, yet she said no. He added that her net worth is $200,000, so she could have fixed it herself easily, but didn't. He asked what kind of person uses their grandmother's suffering for political points and refuses help because it comes from conservatives, suggesting she cares more about her brand than her family. He revealed that she didn't even respond to a Puerto Rican charity that offered help, and that the refused money was redistributed to 12 other families who got their roofs fixed, meaning 12 grandmothers were dry while hers suffered. AOC claimed the money was politically motivated, but Trump exploded, asking who cares about the motivation if the roof gets fixed. He told her she doesn't care about helping people, only about being seen as the one who helps, and warned the audience that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Trump sat down and transitioned to where her money actually goes, introducing her husband, Tim Minette. He noted Tim is a political consultant and owner of E Street Group, which her campaign has paid $2.8 million since 2019. When her lawyer objected, Trump silenced him with public records showing Tim's ex-wife cited the affair in divorce filings. Trump showed a timeline graph where payments to Tim's company spiked when the affair started: $50,000 in April, $75,000 in May, $100,000 in June, suggesting she was paying him for something other than consulting. He showed receipts for the Four Seasons Los Angeles and St. Regis New York, charged as strategy sessions and donor outreach. mocking the idea of a presidential suite for donor meetings. He compared her payments of $700,000 per year to E Street Group against the industry average of $50,000, noting her approval ratings had dropped 12 points, so she likely wasn't paying for his consulting genius. He theorized that she funneled campaign funds to her lover to maintain their lifestyle, which the FEC is investigating as a potential felony. He expressed anger on behalf of working people who donated $27, thinking it was for the cause, only for it to fund her presidential suites and first-class flights. He accused her of robbing the poor to fund her lifestyle. Trump then shifted energy to her merchandise, calling it his favorite part. He pulled up her campaign store, showing sweatshirts, t-shirts, and tote bags, joking it was like if Che Guevara had a Shopify account. He zoomed in on a Tax the Rich sweatshirt selling for $58, feigning shock at the price and the irony of selling a $58 shirt to say, "Rich people are bad." He wrote on a whiteboard that the manufacturing cost is about $10, meaning a $48 profit per shirt, or an 83% margin numbers usually seen in luxury brands like Gucci. He called her the Gwyneth Paltrow of socialism, and showed other items like $30 t-shirts and $20 dog bandanas, connecting it back to the dog spa. He calculated that even with conservative estimates, she was making millions in revenue, calling it an inspired grift, where she monetizes the revolution. He compared it to his MAGA hats, which were $25, noting he didn't pretend to hate capitalism while selling them. He accused her of selling revolution at Nordstrom prices, calling her the Che Guevara of overpriced merchandise, and noted the sadness of her followers going into debt to buy these items. Trump moved to his next point, that everything she does is fake. He brought up the 2018 viral photos of her crying at the border. He showed wider angles, revealing the fence was a road barrier at an empty parking lot, not a detention center, and that there were no kids or facilities nearby. He showed time-stamped photos of her posing and changing expressions for the camera, proving it was a staged photo shoot. He showed her congressional record of passing 0 significant bills in 5 years while maintaining a massive social media presence, accusing her of being a content creator in Congress, who spends half her time on brand management. He declared she was not there to govern but to generate content. Finally, Trump stood up for the only question that mattered, the mood turning grave. He asked her simply, "When you wake up in the morning, who do you serve?" He listed the contradictions, the dress, the car, the grandmother, the boyfriend, the merch, and asked if she served the country or herself. He held up a pocket constitution and asked if she loved America as it is, or only her idea of what it should be. He demanded a yes or no answer. "Do you love America?" AOC hesitated, knowing it was a trap, and eventually gave a qualified answer about loving the promise of America, but recognizing its atrocities. Trump declared that was a no, that she loved a socialist idea of America, not the reality. He gathered his papers, telling her she forgot to be grateful, and contrasted his honesty about his wealth with her fraudulence. He walked out, leaving chaos. The aftermath was swift. Clips went viral, polls tanked, challengers announced, and she eventually lost her seat. Trump watched from Mar-a-Lago, satisfied that he had exposed the brand built on lies.